So here we are with Tony Rodrigues again to cover a part 2 of his time with the 20-year and back secret space program. So Tony, welcome back. It's a pleasure to have you, a real honor. We had a great time last time, covering all different types of subjects and experiences that you've had within this 20-year and back program. How you doing?
I'm good. We're coming up on Christmas. It's the holidays, so it's been hectic, just running. And recently, I guess we can touch on it right out of the gate. Is with the UFO, we've had like a bit of a disclosure about the Pentagon's program of monitoring UFO activity and how they spent money. Apparently they did a audit of the DoD, the Department of Defense, and then all of a sudden the next day later, a day or two later, then they uncovered money spent on tracking UFOs, and then here we have Navy pilots with video of UFOs being tracked. So this is a big deal. I was gonna go on another radio show last night, a live radio show, and it was like a 4-hour thing, like midnight, until 2 or 4 in the morning and something like that. And they bumped me, so I got canceled off the show because they wanted to cover this. It was that big of a deal where they cleared their schedule for the rest of the week. All the speakers got taken off the show because they're gonna talk about this only. So it's a big deal in the community to actually now. I mean, the Pentagon has been the very first people to tell you that there are no aliens, there's no UFO, there's no nothing. They're the very first ones to tell you that there's none of that. And now they have video and the pilots doing interviews on CNN and on Fox News, saying that they had a UFO monitoring program and that we may not be alone. I mean, this is like straight up disclosure. I mean, it's an official thing. This is what we've always wanted, but it's just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm wondering if it was precursored, like they planned this 6 months ago to disseminate this information, to like throw some breadcrumbs out to the public to get the ball rolling, because maybe there's something bigger that they're talking about that or that they've discovered, like that asteroid that they thought mimicked or looked like an interstellar spacecraft.
Right. Well, who knows? Who knows if it's somebody outside of the government that's brought it about, or the government, or it sounds like the way that it came about with a forced audit of the Defense Department, and then that dug up the paper trail, the money trail of how it came. It sounds like somebody making somebody else disclose up in the higher program. That's pure speculation. I'm speculating. I don't know. I don't have an inside view of what goes on. But for our community, a lot of things are vindicated. A lot of things I find vindicating. They're also, I don't want to throw around a bunch of names, but there were some other papers that were declassified that talked about interstellar travel and methods of it, and I found it was really cool for me to read it and then see the things that I described that I remembered, the method of travel and the time travel aspect of it, where we would get back a few minutes before we would leave so that we knew the mission was a success or not, or to scrub the mission. There were times when we never came back on time, so we scrubbed the mission. I showed up to work and was on my station on the ship, and we just went home. Well, they made us clean. I cleaned for it was a short time. It was an hour of cleaning, and then I could go home. We were done for the day because the mission wasn't a success. We would leave. The ship would leave, do its mission, and come back 5 minutes before we left, and park in a certain spot so that we knew we weren't hijacked. If they parked over here, they knew the mission wasn't. It was somebody else. So there was a spot to park. And if we were in the right spot, then we would take off and go on the mission, and then we'd come home. I got back in the morning right after we left. I had all day. And for the time that I had on Ceres Colony, when we lived on Ceres, for the time, and it wasn't every mission. There were plenty of missions that I was on for 8 hours. We got back, and it was later in the afternoon because we were nearby, or just they didn't warrant it for the time travel. I don't know what dictated that. But it was more than half of the time we did time travel when we came back. Anyhow, so there have been other sources releasing other papers about interstellar drives and the wormhole technology. that confirm that suggest that. And I'm reading it going, yeah, right. I must have done the whole thing, right?
What, whether or not people believe or not believe with what's being disclosed or what's happening, it's the subliminal thought programming that's happening behind that. It's putting that key in within someone's subliminal self to be more accepting of it when more information comes forward. It's just that subliminal. It's like a subliminal breadcrumb. That's all I can liken it to.
I'll tell you, it's really hard to talk about any kind of UFOs with any parties. If you're out drinking with somebody or having a few drinks, cocktails, or with friends, and you bring it up, it's like everybody just clams up, and it's like, what subliminal thing caused that to make everybody have to giggle? You know what I mean? And it deserves being spoken about. Honestly, like people, you should be able to speak about it. Go, man, I could have swore we saw a UFO. And you'll get laughed out of the party. People, people will freak out about you. So, what kind of programming did that? When was I programmed to feel that apprehension? Because I didn't catch it. I didn't catch it when they were programming me to feel that way. When someone talks about their own experience, and many people that do have their experiences are so varied. Mine was in a program. I went through the programs. That belonged to humans. I was bought and sold through program to program. There was a dollar value, and they were human. They were humans that traded me. But there's a lot of other people that have ET experiences or experiences that are weird, that are not humans. And so I still find myself with that first instinct of giggle factor when I hear it. Go, I don't think so. But then I think about it and I go, man, if anybody believes my story, I gotta listen to everybody else's story and just have an open mind.
Right. So just recapping to those of you that are just joining us, in our first part of the interview that I did with Tony, we covered a lot of his time in space, in the space program, within the 20-year and back program. And we talked a lot about his experiences within on Ceres Colony, and we covered a lot, didn't we? We covered a lot.
We did. You know what? I remember I asked you before the interview to not talk about Mars and eat up the whole interview, which everybody does, because I was only there for a short time, and then I spent most of the time on Ceres Colony, and we had skipped, I believe, the whole time on Earth, which really was, with the researchers that I dealt with in the beginning, really was the best piece of proof that I had. Everybody wants proof. You go through on not your interview, but on other interviews I did, and you go down, and it's like they always comment, not a shred of proof. Not a shred of proof for it. There's quite a bit of proof about my case. I was taken and then put in a system. Call it a system. They have a system of taking people. Let's say they take you, you're 10 years old. I was 9, but let's just say 10 years old. Huh? I was 9. I was 9 years old. Yeah. And let's just say they take you when you're 10. That way we can do the math quicker. They can take you and you'll live 20 years. And some people have the genetics to do it twice. So to take you and go back, and then they wait for that 20 years and then take you again and do another 20. So there's, the technology is getting better, but I'm pretty sure it goes by genetics. It's a genetic thing. So I just had the genetic. They tested me. They took me straight up alien abduction, greys and little reptiles. Took me, put me in a laboratory, did a test on me, genetic test, and we waited for the results. When it got back, they said you do have the genetics. Just barely, and I qualified for 120 and back. So they take you, let's say if you're 10, and you can go and work for them for 20 years, and then they have the technology to either age regress you, put you back in your old body if they took you out of your body, or put you back in a new body. I don't know exactly the tech. I think there's more than one way to do it, to be honest. I think it's the same result, but they have a few different ways of doing it with cloning and whatnot. But basically I grew into a man. I grew up to a 29-year-old man. I lived 20 years, and then they put me back. They put me back through a long process from the base on the moon. They put me back, and then they put you. And here's where you lose people. They put you back in time, so that I was back to being 9 years old, and it was about 15 minutes later, and they put me back in my bed. They came in my bedroom, took me. I worked for free labor for 20 years. They put me back 15 minutes later in the same 9-year-old body, or looking exactly the same, and put me back 15 minutes later into our natural Earth timeline, so that wouldn't get changed. But I was different. I wasn't the same person.
When you came back, did you? You felt...
No, I was completely different. Yeah, I was completely different. Overnight I was attracted to adult women. And I was 9, and I didn't know. And at that point, it's not like we didn't have the internet, and I didn't have access to pornography or anything. I didn't know about the birds and any of that. I didn't know about any of that. I was 9, and all of a sudden I woke up and I went out into the world, into school and things, and I was sexually attracted to adult women. So that was a consequence of that, and it was like literally the next day, and because I had relationships, because I had already lived through relationships up there. But that's just one thing. The other thing is, during that 20 years, this is where the evidence comes in. I lived about 6 years, I didn't have a calendar on me then, but I lived about 6 years on Earth, and I worked for them on Earth. They had used me for a few bad things. The very first thing that I woke up, I didn't have any memory of my family. I woke up in like a doctor's office after the aliens in the laboratory. They said, we're going to take you for 20 years, and they put me back. The movie, The Fire in the Sky, with the rubber sheet that comes over, that scene, it was exactly that scene. It was a rubber sheet, and it sucked close to the table. They cut out the rubber around my eye and around my mouth so I could breathe, and a big needle went in right there, and pow! And I don't remember. I woke up in a hospital, kind of. It wasn't a hospital, but it was a hospital bed with a nurse and a doctor giving me a reflex test and checking, it was a standard medical checkup. And I had no memory of my mom or dad or sister or where I had amnesia. I had no memory of how I got there. None. And I went through a standard trauma-based mind control, an MK Ultra trauma-based mind control program for months. We were tortured. We were literally tortured and electrified, and they would make us watch movies. They would drug us and make us watch movies. And
let's interrupt for a moment. So these women, there's been a couple of prominent women that have come forward disclosing the MK Ultra program. There's one, Cathy OBrien was one of them. Have you ever listened to her testimony?
Yeah.
And then there was another one. Does that correlate? Does that correlate with what she's saying?
Yeah. Oh God. It's very difficult because I find myself, man, where do I begin? It's difficult to read that stuff for me. I get in, even writing my book. I've been writing a book about it. That's the hard, when I write about the MK Ultra stuff, I start getting these weird headaches that are not a headache, but like a brain exhaustion, and I mope around. I get depressed. I get in a really bad funk, man, for 3 or 4 days. So it's hard to even talk about it because I start remembering the torture. I start actually physically remembering going through the torture of it, and it's very difficult. The Cathy OBrien stuff, she was used in a different, I think, a more sexual purpose. She went through the kitten training or whatever they call it, the sex kitten. So that was a different purpose. I didn't get much. I did get the sex treatment, but not till later. In the very beginning, at the end of the program, they said our class, there was only like 6 kids or 9 kids, I think, maybe a dozen kids in the class tops, but there were not that many. And that I had qualified for Theta programming, the Theta version of it, which was psychic stuff. So they say that they use the Theta people to make psychic killers, but I didn't do any of that. We went through a remote viewing class, and they gave us a whole nother set of drugs, and we went. There's not a whole lot about that I remember because it was towards the end of it, and by then we weren't sleeping. They had started sleep depriving us. Once that started, I really don't remember a whole lot about it because it was like a giant buzzer. A loud buzzer would go off every 15 minutes all night long, so you never got any sleep. It went on for months, so you'd wake up and resume your day, and the pain would keep you awake. But when you went to bed, every 15 minutes a buzzer went up, and sometimes they'd get us up and make us go get in a bucket of ice, a big bucket of ice until we were shivering, and then go back to bed. And then boom, the buzzer would get up, and you had to get up and get electric shock. So after they started with that, I really the memories of that program really I don't remember. I remember the earlier parts of it before the sleep deprivation. Anyhow, so from that, what happened was they put us in an oxygen tent towards the end, and then cut the air out. And they could monitor when you were about to die, and then it'd give you air again. So they were bringing you close to death, and then the machine would turn on and you get air, and you come back, and then close to death again. And after a while, there was a point where it wasn't me talking. It wasn't a 9-year-old boy. It was me, but it was like my higher self or something. Like, you need to let this kid die. I remember being furious from an internal and I said, hey, you need to let this kid die, or make up your mind what you're doing. Like, I was angry. It was my higher self speaking, yeah. And I wasn't a boy at that point. I spoke like I was a grown man. And it's something, and I said some other stuff. I threatened them. I remember I was mad, and then that was the end of it. So that qualified me for the theta. And what happened was, from then on out, they would give the kids that did that and that made it that far, they would put an IV bag in us. And I remember I would pass out, and then they would ask us. It was like we would channeling. I don't know if it was channeling other people or whatever, but it was psychic ability. They gave us an IV, and I'd pass out, and when I woke up, people in the room were standing around with their jaws dropped. They were amazed at things I said. So I don't know if it was me or somebody, channeling spirits. Honestly, I don't know. But I know that I got a lot of respect from people that witnessed it when that happened. So what happened was they took me, I went from there, and I went to the guy that owned me, who was a billionaire in Seattle. It wasn't Bill Gates. It was a different billionaire. And I don't say his name in interviews because I don't want to die. Because there are still people alive that are associated with his name and with that part of the world. So I'm not trying to get revenge on them, but I found them, and I've been back to the house. I've traveled there and went back to the house.
So was he? Can I just interrupt for a moment? So was he affiliated with this program, or is this to do with the Illuminati, satanic?
He was probably an Illuminati. He was a practicing Satanist, and I witnessed a human ritual sacrifice. And then after that, it was the full-on. This was another thing that corroborated my story, because some people that researched me had experience in the satanic stuff, and I had described accurately a satanic ritual. So I've never been in any of that in my life. So how would I know that? But I had been through it. I've seen it. So it was a satanic ritual. They had sacrificed a young boy who was younger than me, and we ate him. You had to eat him. And then there was me and 2 other kids, and they put us up on tables with the IVs and put us under. And he was getting business advice for that. So if you think about that, you think about people that go. There are people in the world that are all of a sudden billionaires, and you go, well, he's just lucky, he's just smart. But there are people that had access to this technology, that have people that can channel and read the future and literally talk to people from the future, the future, the past, or whatever. Demons, who know? I don't know what they're talking about. But he had access to knowledge, to arcane knowledge. So if you think about, he was getting accurate business predictions. Should I buy this company? Should I take this company over? And then he's talking to drugged kids from the Theta program of MK Ultra. So that's what was happening.
The extent that humans, if they are actually human, will go to, the extent that people or whoever they are will go to in order to have this monetary.
Anybody that finds a loophole to make more money and get more powerful is going to use it. Anyone. I don't care who you are. It's a loophole. And it found its way to somebody that would use it, that had the means to use it. So take it. No, I just want to take. Well, once you get, it's a competition thing. It's just, do they have enough? I don't know, but I know that if I had a loophole that gave me a little bit extra money every day, I would exploit it as much as I could. I'm not saying that I'm some kind of pedophile. Child, I'm not a practicing Satanist. I'm not into any of that, But I'm saying that once you get to a certain point of, any loophole is going to be exploited, and it was a mighty loophole. But so I want to roll it forward. So that happened, and I stayed at that house after that. He took us in there. No, I was there for a few weeks, and then right, and this is in Seattle. This is right out of the program, right out of the mind control program. I went straight there. I rode an underground high-speed train.
People will stop at nothing.
That's right. I went through the MK Ultra programming, and then rode a train, and then went there, and then witnessed a satanic ceremonies where they used the IV bag and did whatever, and put us under and used us for information. Then he had a private plane. He had his own airfield there. He had a private plane, and I flew to Peru. I flew to a town called Puerto Tawantinsuyo, and I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. And I lived there for about 3 years. And what was happening there was that it's a river town in the jungle part, way on the interior of Peru. And people were bringing from cocaine labs out in the jungle. They would, every so often, a boat would come up with a package of cocaine, and when it stored up to be enough of it, they would put it all on an airplane. They had their own airstrip, and then they would put me on the airplane. And after we were in the air about an hour, I had a handler, and he would drug me and put me under. And I was a navigation. I would help them in case there were police or bad weather. Apparently, they had lost a plane. One plane flew into a mountain, like bad weather happened, and it flew into a mountain. So then they had me on all the flights after that. And I lost the ability. It only worked until I was hit puberty. Right around 13, I quit having the ability. I didn't work anymore. The first flight, I didn't work. They put me under, and I didn't say anything, and they were, it was dangerous. They didn't know their way. I guess it wasn't an official pilot. The pilot didn't come out of college or something. It was just somebody they showed how to operate the plane. He didn't really know how to navigate well. And then my handler was, the only reason the guy that took care of me was because he spoke English, and I spoke English. Everybody else spoke Spanish. So he didn't want the job. He was stuck with it. It was a cocaine operation. There was something like 4,000 pounds of cocaine a load. And it was once a month. Flights, we would fly from Puerto Tawantinsuyo, Peru, to Santa Marta, Colombia, to the airstrip there. And we would unload it all off, and I don't know what happened to it then. They were scared. The pilot and the guy were always scared because it was always a different crew of guys unloading it. And they were scared we were going to get killed. And then we would fly back, and I would be really sick. I was always sick after they, whatever the drug did. I think it brought you close to death. I think that's the deal. It got you real close to death, and you can access the other side. And in that time, I could access lots of different memories. I saw my own future. I saw a lot of things during that time while I was under.
Can I just ask? Do you believe this is still going on? Having boys or girls, I don't know, under? Is this?
I don't see why they would have stopped. The CIA is responsible for cocaine. Everybody knows it. They have CIA planes crash with cocaine on them, and this is a CIA level of clearance of technology. So I would assume it was the CIA that was behind it with the MK Ultra. When the paper trail between all the MK Ultra stuff, all the way back, the CIA, the mind control is based by CIA funding, the CIA dollars, and then they use the cocaine trade for black money to get money to do other stuff, for probably space program money, and for who knows what else they're doing. So it's just one technology they had access to that they got from the Germans from World War II. When the Germans experimented on the Jewish people, they invented the cookbook on the MK Ultra on the mind control. So they must have discovered the theta program on the psychic stuff on some people, not everybody, but some people. So that's what happened. And I lived there. I was there about 3 years. I was there from 9, so about going on 4 years almost, from 9 till about 13.
So people would have known you in that area. People would have known you in that.
I loved it there. I was sad. The rest of my 20 years, I missed it, and I longed to go back. That was the only place where everybody was. They were not rich. It's like very poor. There's like great poverty there, but everybody loved everybody. There was love there. There was a great feeling of love, and I was welcomed. And at the end, on the last day I was there, they all lined up. It's about a mile or so, mile and a half from the town, the road from the town to the airstrip, and all the kids and everybody lined up and waved goodbye to me. And they called me Los Loco Pequeño de la Luna, the crazy boy from the moon, because I told them that I'd been to the moon. I said that I'd been to the moon, and they know half of them didn't believe me, but my handler believed me. The other thing is, the very first flight, it didn't work, and they were going to kill me. They said they spent a lot of money on me, and I was worthless. There was no such thing as a psychic. But then, and they sent a silver blanket. They said the EM field from the plane's navigation equipment messed it up. They said that's what it was. So then the following month, it was monthly, the flights of cocaine. Like they would bring a little bit, and then when they had enough at the end of the month, the plane would take it. They sent a blanket made out of silver and wrapped me in that, and that protected me from the EM field of it was a C-42 or C-46 Commando cargo plane. It had a little window in the front and the bottom. I remember because they let me crawl down and look under it once. I looked out that window. But so whatever those instruments did interfered with psychic phenomenon. So I'm not very psychic now that I feel like, even though I really am a skeptic. Until just recently, since my story came out, I've been contacted by so many people that channel, and I've seen people kind of with just freaky accuracy of things. I've seen enough to believe in it now.
Feel that you have attained any psychic ability, or is there an intuition that you feel? Do you get deja vu?
All the time. I dream of the next day. I thought everybody did this. I thought everybody did it, but apparently not. But when I dream at night, I dream about the tomorrow. My dreams are of, I'll get a scene or two of later in the day today, and I have almost every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Wow.
I dream. It's just a scene. It's not enough. It's not enough to go make any money off of. You know what I mean? But I'll get a little bit of deja vu. I'll get it, and it's a dream. And the thing that what's important to remember is that it's an abstract version. It's not like they think that your brain records certain receptors, and then those are left blank. There's two of them that are left blank. So when you experience it, it just puts the experience in both of them, and it feels like deja vu. It's not like that, because the one that I dream about is abstract. It's not the same recording. So it actually is a dream, because I read up on it a little bit. And so I'm not convinced that it's my brain that just is chemically altered or whatever. I have dreams, and there's usually 2 or 3 seconds out of the day that I dreamt of that morning, every day. So I thought everybody was like that, though, isn't it? Is everybody like that? I don't know.
Well, I mean, look, as a psychic myself, I don't have that as frequently as you do, but I do have premonition or premonitive images or imagery. Sometimes it happens at night, sometimes it happens that day. Sometimes it's so profound and bold, it'll give me chills thinking, I've already been here. Oh my goodness, I know what you're going to say next. So I think it does.
Yeah.
Perhaps it doesn't happen as frequently with people, but maybe there has been some kind of manipulation on a neurological level in order to help you have a gateway or access a gateway up into the higher, your higher self, that allows you to get that information. Because I know a lot of people that were never psychic. They may have a traumatic physical injury, and it may open up some neurological or chemical gateways within the brain that allows them to have and experience psychic phenomena, which they've never had before. And that can be attributed to emotional trauma or physical trauma. It's kind of weird, because it's a mystery. And, I mean, I say that every human has natural psychic ability, because we're all made with the same kit, we're all made with the same tools, but some people just have it more apparent and obvious in their lives than others. So,
well, the other thing is, all the information's clearly been hidden. They've spent millions of dollars in psychic research. Who did that? The CIA. The CIA spent millions of dollars over 30 years that they had to claim it in the paperwork. 30 years. It was something like $20 million or $17 million. It's not a lot of money compared to the whole budget. That's a lot of money over 20 years, and all the data's gone. They found nothing according to them. So they kept nothing going for 17 years or 20 years or however long the experiment went on. They kept it going for 20 years because of nothing, is what the official thing is. But really, they perfected it. You know what I mean? All the studies on psychic phenomenon are laughed about or gone. There's no results. There's no book. There's no official college book about a study on human. You know, they do the flashcards, and you know it as well as I do. They've done studies with people in one room that can tell what the other person's looking at in the other room. You got twins. All the studies about the twins feeling pain and all the psychic phenomena. Just the twins have enough psychic phenomena between those to physically document it, and all that information's just gone. It's not available to us. So me and you are sitting here trying to take guesses at what we're experiencing, you know, because our tax dollar, well, mine, you know, I live in America, my tax dollars that I paid for, I'm not getting the information that I bought, that we funded that information. That was for us. You know, that's the reason, that's why all that stuff is created, so that we can have that. That's why our government exists. And it's taken from us. It's hidden from us.
It's crazy and it's frustrating. But, you know, you even have to, if you've ever, I'm not sure if you've heard of Ingo Swann. He was huge in the remote viewing program back in the 70s. And he was they call him the father of remote viewing, because his psychic ability, natural psychic ability, was unprecedented. I mean, it was amazing. And he talked about remote viewing the moon, and the more he learned about it without them even telling him, because he had superiors that were in charge of him, and he talks about how these two twins who just seemed to pop up anywhere he was, they end up recruiting him into this $1,000 a day. I mean, back in the 70s, $1,000 a day is a lot of money. And so basically they would put a hood over his head, fly him in a helicopter to some underground base, some facility. He believed it was underground, but he was covered the whole time. And then they, you know, started experimenting with this psychic program. So he was talking about going to the moon. I know a lot of viewers that have been watching my videos. I've talked about Ingo Swann and his book Penetration. And he was talking about these. His words were, when he went to the moon's surface, he found these butt-ass naked human males mining something on the moon's surface. He found on the dark side of the moon these big towers with light. He said there was dust everywhere. He said there was some kind of program, and they knew he was remote viewing them. They could see some kind of ripple in the atmosphere, and they got all excited. And then his superior told him, you need to move away from that place. He shut the file and said it's all over. Like, we're finished, we're done. And then Ingo got really upset and argued, saying, well, wait a minute. Hold on, I've just seen something and you're going to shut me down? Tell me what the hell's going on. And he basically guessed without his superior. His superior was called Mr. Axelrod. That's his code name or whatever it was. And talked about saying how, well, Ingo guessed that, he said that Earth humans were not basically welcome. So this bleeds into the whole official space program and about us going to the moon. What is going on with the moon? I mean, it's ridiculous how out of all the years that we have tried to go to the moon, whether or not we went to the moon, we're still not there. You know, why haven't we colonized it by now? There must be other forces.
60s. Something they did in the 60s is too expensive to do now, and coming up on 2020, like it's expensive. That they don't know how, and all the stuff, technology's gone. I checked it out, and $1,000 a day in 1975 is about $4,500 in today's dollars. $4,500 a day. So, No, but the remote viewing stuff is real. In the theta program, we did that. We did remote viewing exercises. They gave us monoatomic gold. They gave us a few other drugs that I don't know what it was, but they drugged us, and then we would go to sleep. But it was it worked. It worked. It was.
Recommend his book. It's incredible. He's very what you see is what you get. Very black and white. Now, do you want to talk about your time on the moon? When did you actually go to the moon? Because I know there were some reptilian beings involved with that.
Went there a bunch of times. I went there a bunch of times.
Was that before or after the Seattle experience?
I went there right after, during the MK Ultra programming. During that, when I qualified for the Theta thing, there was a trip to the moon. There was a craft that landed right on the runway where we were at, and we rolled stairs up and walked up to it and went to the moon. And then I went in there, and there was a few surgeries. There were grays. It was the trapezoid base. It looks like the Pentagon, and it looks like the Pentagon, but in the shape of a trapezoid. You know. Yeah, side of the moon. Yeah, and we flew up, and then the craft we were on, it was just like an airplane being on the inside of it, but the rows were longer. Like on an airplane, you know, on the biggest one I think is, what are there, 7 seats wide, 7, 8, 10 seats, not that many. You know, most airplanes now are got 6 seats. It's like they made them smaller, but this was like 20, 30 seats, man. I mean, like it was wide. The rows were very wide. And it was just like an airplane. I could have swore it said Douglas on the seat in front of you, like a Douglas. But that was the first time. Yeah, yeah. That was the first time I went, and I went up, and like I said, it was just a few surgeries they gave us. There were things, they pointed a big gold needle at me right here, and then nothing happened. And I was so happy. I remember being apprehensive. I remember being scared, like this is going to hurt. And it was a big, scary-looking gold needle, and it went right there, and then nothing happened. Whatever it did was like microwaved me, or I don't know what it did. It went right back. That trip, I went right back to the air base and went right back to my cot, and we resumed the Theta programming. It was a treatment to make us more psychic, that's what that was. And those facilities to do that were on the moon. Huh?
Went to the moon to get more psychic. That's where you got more psychic. Okay.
Well, they were treatments. They were treatment. We went through medical procedures because we had qualified for that program. So that was one trip to the moon, and then I went through the Peru thing, and then back to Seattle. So then, when I was, it had to be around 13, 12 or 13, getting close to puberty, that I started getting sicker and sicker. They would give me that. We'd do the flight, and we'd fly from over the state of Acre in South America, and then right when we got into Colombia, they would drug me and put me under. And then I'd wake up on the runway while they were unloading everything. That was usually when I came out of it. And then the flight back, I think it was like 5 hours, something like that. It was 10 hours all the way, 12 hours all the way, the whole trip. But on the flight back, I would be sick. I mean, just like deathly ill. I was suffering, you know. But after a while, I would stay sick like that for days, for the next couple of days, and it kept getting longer and longer. And they were like, "Man, this is going to kill him." And so they took me out of that. So plus I lost the ability. I was not. He said that he talked to his dead grandma through me. He said that there were times, and I don't know Spanish any more than the typical bits and pieces of Spanish, but he said that there were times when I was fluent in Spanish. When I was drugged and under, he was asking me questions, and I was fluent in Spanish, answering the questions. So I was channeling there were other people talking through me, is what I can tell. I don't remember it. I was going to sleep, and I was waking up sick. That's what it felt like. After that, I went back. A cargo plane came and got me, and I went back to somewhere on the West Coast, Portland, in that area. And then she came down. His wife drove down and got me, and drove me.
Wife?
Huh?
This is the billionaire's wife, your owner. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so she drove me back to the house in Seattle. They had 500 acres. They had many houses there. They had horses. He had his own butcher shop. I could assume to get rid of bodies that he sacrificed. And there were other boys. This time when I got back there, there was 6 or 7 other boys living there in the house, and she lived there, and he was never there. He would come for a weekend and leave again, and she lived there without him. She was miserable. She did not. She did not. She was not happy in her with her lot in life as his wife, and she couldn't do anything about it. But anyhow, and that was a we were.
So the other boys
That
there
was the
were
sex
slaves? Were they like you there?
We were sex slaves. Sex slaves for elite people. It was the pedogate stuff. And you know what? I documented all this in May of 2015, long before any pedogate information came out. So it's kind of vindicating for that. And when you talk about there's not a shred of proof, I was talking about how all this stuff went down in 2015. So now it hit the mainstream news. But basically, they would. It was during the summer. They had their own calendar of events in the summertime, and it was only in the summers. Like in the winter, we'd do the lineup, where all the boys lined up in our underwear, and there'd be a guy there, and he always picked the young ones. I was like middle aged. There was an older one that he was like in charge of us. He was like 17 or something, 18, and none of us got along. It was like living in an orphanage. It was not a good lifestyle. But during the summer, they would have parties. They were whatever the masquerade parties, and at midnight or whatever, later on they'd chain us together. We wore like a Speedo thing, but it was custom, and they would lead us out. And not every time. Sometimes I didn't. I just stayed in bed and I didn't go out. And then sometimes you got picked. Like I said, they gave the lineup, and people through the parties picked which boys they wanted out on there. And there was a carpet out on a lawn, and we would get raped. We were sex slaves. And so they had girls. The girls would be on the stage on the other. There would be a big crowd, 100 people. You couldn't see past the crowd, but there was a stage at the end. I guess they had girls over there that stayed in another house. We were in contact with girls. And I was there for, I think, 3 summers. 3 summer times I spent through that. Yeah. And then what happened was they controlled our diet. We were skinny. All the boys, even though we were on, it was a big mansion house, millions of dollars. They had money, but we got up in the morning and it was 1 egg on one piece of toast. And then at lunch we had like a yogurt and a granola thing, and then for dinner it was salad with tofu, and that was just it. That was our diet, and it was the same thing every day, so that we would lose weight. I mean, we were starving. But it also in the morning. What's that?
Keep lean, so you would maintain that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. But in the morning we did calisthenics as well. We got up and we had to do a workout. We had to do jumping jacks and push-ups and sit-ups and that. And they gave us a little cup of pills that we had to take. Boom, you had some water and a couple pills. And I don't know what it did. It was a steroid, or I don't know what was in there. But they changed it one day. When I was right around 16 years old, they changed the pills. She had intravenous drugs. I mean, they put us under. She could put us out. We would get injections of stuff, and whenever she drove anywhere, she would take one of us with her, and so she would meet a guy. There were drugs that she had that had to stay cold. That had to stay cold, and she was getting them illegally from a doctor in town. So we had to go meet. It was like a drug deal. But she'd always take us shopping and whatever. I don't want to get too much into that, but most of this account is provable. That's the thing. People say there's no proof. I went back to the house. I went back there and I knew my way around a place that I'd never been. Me, in my life, I grew up in Michigan, and my dad's from Hawaii. We'll go to Hawaii, but I never went to Seattle ever. Never set foot in Seattle. So then when I remembered all this stuff, when I had recall in 2015, I went back the following year in 2016. I went there, and I knew my way around. I Googled the route to the house, and when I got close to it, I didn't have to watch the map anymore, and I went a different way that was way quicker to the house. I knew how to get there. There's a lot more to that. But anyhow, they changed.
Shard of this whole Illuminati satanic program that's been going on for God knows how long. But obviously, I mean, David Icke has covered a lot of this, and as crazy as it all sounds, the information that he presents initially, when you start to piece the dots of the puzzle together, it starts to really become cohesive, and it seems to fit. Whether or not this was a reptilian satanic thing or just an Illuminati thing, why did it have to be satanic? Why? Like, this is what I mean. Are they? Is there someone?
The tie that binds.
Pardon?
Yeah, it's the tie that binds. These are people. This religion, I believe, and again, I'm going to speculate. I'm going to speculate here. I want to make that clear that I don't have proof about this, but I believe that this religion was for people that were in power long ago, thousands of years ago. There were many religions, and most of the world practiced ritual human sacrifice before Christ. In all those years, like the Hawaiians, the people in South America, all through Tahiti and the Micronesia, all those, the Europeans, the Vikings, Jerusalem, all through Israel. That's what Jesus really did. Jesus said, "You don't eat anybody. You have the bread and the wine. Eat of my body, my blood." That's what he did. That's what that did. That got rid of ritual human sacrifice. That's what that was. And so these people stayed doing that, and that religion stayed in power because they're focused on themselves. So they had power. So then now we roll the clock forward. We have a space program. They're the ones that are in control of it. They're the ones that have access to it. Whether it's the ETs in the first place, I don't know. I don't know that. But I think that this religion has been around a long time, and it's been a good people to stay in power. Another note on those parties, there was a carpet they put us on, and while we were being raped, it's hard to say, they would get raped. While it was happening, they wanted us to face our head in a certain direction so that the people that was with us would be on camera. There was a guy in the bushes far away, like 100 yards away in the bushes, with a long telephoto lens camera taking pictures of it. And they told us to never face away from the center of the carpet you're on. Make sure you face the center of the carpet, and if you can, face that way, away from the path, the sidewalk. Face away from the sidewalk, because they could get their face on camera. So that's what was going on. I mean, that was what was going on there. And so you think about that.
And to think that it could be still going on right at this moment, and then if there is someone higher in power that they shapeshift to, because obviously there's a lot of talk about in the top tier echelon people of the world, they're serving someone. And I know that what's his name, Alex Jones, had some secret camera footage going into one of these ceremonies at Bohemian Grove.
Bohemian Grove. Boys. Now I didn't go, but boys that I stayed with at that house had been to Bohemian Grove. Had been there. The stable of boys, and then during the time I was there, boys came and went. There were only 3 or 4 of us that stayed the whole time. The rest of the time, there'd be 6 boys, and they would go and never come back, and then others would come. They wouldn't stay very long. It was in and out, revolving door. It was an underground network that was going on. Boys would come and go. Like I said, it's another loophole. It's a loophole.
Reptilians, I don't know, but the whole thing, the more you learn about it and the more you can see the dots piecing together, you realize there is something going on. What it is, it's hard to say what is going on without getting into trouble, without someone finding out that you're sniffing where you shouldn't be sniffing. I don't know, like it seems so.
Like I said, I've shared the identities and the place with researchers only to prove my account. I don't say it publicly, in interviews, because I found their name. I found all the the parties that they threw that we were at were online. They're online. They were in the newspaper, in Seattle, and I found documents about it, and I've done a lot of research about it. After I remembered it was surreal that when I remembered what happened, when I got all my memories back, I can't say all of them, but when I got the majority of those memories back from that time, I went on Google Earth and I just started looking around, and we would do the calisthenics and have our stuff, and the rest of the day we were boys. We had a swimming pool, and we could just hang out in the pool all day. That was basically, it was a pretty lazy day. You know, you say sex slave, but really the sex part was only, like I said, in the summer months, once a month in the summer months, and that was it. And the rest of the time, it was like living in an orphanage with a bunch of boys, you know, with no real love. There was no love there. Nobody was lovey, or there was no real emotional support of that. It was a very lonely place. But when I found it on Google Earth. I went there. I found the house. I knew my way around. I went. It was hard for me to believe it myself. I wanted my memories to be wrong. I wanted everything I remembered to not be right. I wanted the things I remembered to somehow be false. And what happened was, the more I dug and dug, the more I looked, the more I found more confirmation that I was there. And then until I went there, and I went there, and I went to the store, and I knew where they still there with the store with it's got this cheap candy bin. You know, there's a bin, and back then you could get candy for 5 and 10 cents. When I went back now, the candy's still there for 35 cents. They have like a cheap candy. And I'm going, this is real, you know. Because of that, because of the Seattle thing, and I also found the town in Peru. I also found places in Peru that we went. The gold mine, I went there. There's a lot about Peru that I don't, just nobody cares to listen to it. Because it's not space aliens. It's not giant bugs and spaceships.
3 weeks, weren't you? I don't know why I was under the impression.
3 weeks the first time. No, the very first time I was there for about 3 weeks. Then I went to Peru for 3 years. Then I went back to the same house in Seattle, which had been remodeled, and lived there for about 3 years. So that's how it's confusing to people that are hearing the story. I went to Seattle, then I went to Peru, then I went back to Seattle and lived there. So what happened then was we took those pills every day. They changed them, and I got sick. I'm allergic to codeine in my real life, and so I must have had codeine in there, because by the third day I was puking. I couldn't do the workout, and I was sick. And so she contacted whoever was in charge, him I imagine, and she said, we need to change it back because one of the boys is sick. She said, well, and she came and told me, she said, look, I talked to them. They're not going to change it back. You're either going to have to take the medicine and get used to it, or you're going to go off to the military. And that was the big threat. You know, if you misbehaved, you were going to the military and you'd probably die. That was what she told us. So you guys have it made here. Nothing happens to you here, you have it made. You know, you're living here for free and not doing nothing. Or if you misbehave here, we're going to send you off to the military. And that's exactly what happened. She shipped me off. We went to a parking lot behind a store. There were some guys in a van. They put a needle in my arm, and that was it. I woke up on the moon. And back in that trapezoid base on the moon. I don't remember flying there. They knocked me out, and I was transported there. And then picks up. What's that?
Just want to say, so talking about the moon, can you describe the reptilians that were in the ship with you? Didn't you say there were some reptilians on the base, or in the base on the moon? One that had a...
Yeah. Short. Yeah, they were shorter ones there, and they were working there. And there were grays there. Yeah. They worked there. I have an artist rendition. I have an artist that I worked with, drew a picture of them.
So how many different races would you distinguish that actually worked and lived?
At that base on the moon, there were many. I don't know if the original place I went was that place, but on the moon I saw there were short, smaller grays. There were tall, long-necked grays. There were blonde humans that were in military uniforms. There were the short reptiles, and I think there was an insect one that they talked about that I never saw. They said you would freak out if you saw the insect, man. You know, like or one of the insectoids. I forget what they call them, the name. That they were there also, but I never saw them.
A mantis being or something like that.
I don't know. A different one, you know. But they were there. They said you would get a kick out of seeing these guys there, you know, because I was amazed, you know, with the reptile. I said you look really cool, you know. I'm just happy to meet you. We hung out for a little while.
Strong was he? How were you impressed by this reptile?
He was small. He was only like 4 feet tall, with a like a helmet thing. It wasn't a helmet, but like a hood that went on, and then he had gloves and everything, and he was super strong. He was super strong. That was his job there. Was that I couldn't, he was stronger than me. He let me know that he was way stronger than me, and he was there to carry me around if he needed to, or stop me if I got violent or something. He was strong. I guess he was from a planet that was heavier gravity. He was from a bigger planet than ours. I have
So I'm wondering if there was some kind of confederation where they all work together for an objective. Like all these different.
That is absolutely it. He said that he went home to his wife and kids at the end of the day. So he traveled to another star system at the end of his workday. He went home. So however that happened, but he went home to his wife and family, and then he just worked there on our moon.
Okay, so obviously there's been something going on the moon's surface for a long time. It's been there well before Earth humans have gone there to try and explore, because obviously a lot of people don't even believe the moon landings were authentic. A lot of people believe those were faked.
I believe they were authentic, and I think that they may have faked some of them. But I'm not. I think we went to the moon, and after so long, they started faking them, either to save money or because we weren't allowed to go back. And then they just said, "No, we're not going no more. It's too expensive," which is got to be a lie. But there, I sent a picture of him, the artist rendition, artofcon.com. He did some really good artwork for me, and I sent that to you. So hopefully, we can put that in there.
So when you were on the moon, did you actually get a visual of seeing the moon's surface or buildings on the moon, an atmosphere?
There was only one time that I was near a window, and I don't know about an atmosphere, but there was only one time that I was on a window, and it was nighttime. I guess it does get light back, I've been meaning to look it up, how often the back side of the moon gets light, because they told me, and I forgot. When I was there, they told me, said the light is not going to come up for another 18 hours or something like that. It was a long time till the sun came back around but it was dark at the time, and I remember being bummed that I couldn't see anything. You could see the lights off the building. There was a building, and it had lights down on the bottom. When you looked down the window, looked down, there were lights there, and you could kind of see the dirt. You could see the dirt, but off of it was in a crater, or there were mountains, and I couldn't see them. So, and that was on my return. That was when they were putting me back.
Okay. It's funny you mention this, because there have been some people, even now and in the past, that have actually got pictures from NASA's archives showing buildings and monuments on the moon. Like one, for example, they call the Shard, and you see this incredibly tall structure that may be, more than a mile in length from the moon. They have, and there's one, maybe it's called the Tower, but there's one called the Shard, the Tower. There's one with a big, large platform. I just can't remember. Actually, Ingo Swann mentions that in his book, the name of the guy that did the research with these moon buildings. And it just, kind of becomes conducive with what you're saying, being that obviously this has been going on for a long time. Since the moon has been in our orbit, whether or not, a lot in. Go ahead.
The first time that I went to the trapezoid base in the 80s would have been 81 or 82, right in there. That first time that I went there, they said it was new. It had just been built. And they said that it looked like the Pentagon because they saved money. I said this in another interview, but because they used the same plans, they saved money on having an architect draw them from scratch. And they used the same plans, the same blueprints from the Pentagon, and just built it in a shape of a trapezoid. And it was a new base. It was new. And I think there was still stuff being worked on, but it looked like a government building on the inside. It looked like your standard, it had shiny floors, shiny tile floors, looking floors, and not the tile, but like the cement that with the epoxy look to it that looks cement-like. Anyhow, it had those. They were shiny, and it had doors with doorknobs, and there were windows in some rooms. You could look inside the room and see what's going on. It was, huh?
Ever see any women?
When I visited the trapezoid base, no. There was a girl that came up with us the first time. You know, one of the kids. There were girls there, but I don't remember any women. There may have been a woman in a lab, like a medical, like in the medical part. There may have been a woman that worked on me during one of the surgeries, but it's kind of vague. It's kind of vague to recall that.
Yeah. Could you speculate? What do you think is going on the moon's surface? What do you think is going on? For all these years, what do you believe is going on with this confederation or this group of...
Okay, so in my experience, there's a lot of the information from when I was on the Ceres colony. From what I knew from other people, there's a lot of information that I wish I could remember. I just can't. And I just need to be reminded of it. You know, like my memory jogged, then it comes back. But from my experience, which isn't... I'm not a very high up person. You know, it's not like I was out there and I had access to information. I wasn't. I was a worker. My experience, they've got free labor. Period. You don't build a robot. You don't build a robot to go into the mines and mine because it's a machine. It needs maintenance, and then when you're done with the mine, you're stuck with a heavy robot that's laying around. When you make people that you're getting for free because they're in a 20 and back, and you're putting them right back with blanking their memory, they don't remember. So I went through the psychic stuff, so I remember. But I think most people that this happens to, and it's a lot more than anybody wants to admit, is free labor. It's free labor. It's free labor. Free. You know, you got to think of the cost of what they did with the surgeries of me versus me working for 20 years without any money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for them. It's just way cheaper than building robots to do it. Just think about it. It's just a cost thing. And they could put you back like it never happened.
What are they doing on the moon? What is it? Is it just a base? Is it for them to observe what's happening on the Earth?
Well, that's where they're taking us. You know, like think about it. I'm going to be completely hypothetical. So there's an intergalactic natural wormhole near Jupiter, a wormhole that goes to other galaxies. So to build a ship that makes its own wormhole needs a lot of power to go beyond the galaxy. Your ship would have to have a lot of power. But most ships don't have the power to do that. They can jump inside our galaxy and fly around in a couple jumps, whatever. To make a wormhole big enough to jump to another galaxy, they'd rather use a natural wormhole. We just happen to have one near Jupiter. So it's an off-ramp. When you come into this galaxy from another galaxy, you're right here. You're in our neighborhood. So there's a whole planet of us, humans, and not only that, it's not like there's one race that dominated and took over. There's many different races, many different versions, and some are better. Some are better in cold, some are better in water. You know what I mean? So you're come to this galaxy and you want to go make a base somewhere, and you need some laborers to go and cut down the trees. So you come to Earth and you go to the moon and you say, I need 10,000 slaves that can cut trees down. And they go and abduct 10,000 people, and they give them their 20 and back clone body or whatever it is, clone or the same person. They take them to that planet, cut their trees down for 20 years, and put them back. And we were none the wiser. You worked for 20 years cutting trees down on some planet under hellish, with no human rights. They just fed you and kept some cheap clothes on you, and then put you back. And that was it. And they didn't pay crap. They didn't pay squat what we would have to pay for a big bulldozer to put gasoline in it. Yeah, I'm just saying, like when you think about it, that's what they're doing. That's what's going on. We're a labor force. We're a slave labor force. Period. And then so there's other people that say that there's genetic experiments. The moon is here. The other thing is, I don't know if you're familiar with William Tompkins. Okay, so he said, first of all, if that's not a moon, or first off, it's not our moon, and second of all, it's not a moon. Yeah. Oh well, no, it can power itself. Now think about this. We're getting to the point. And I talked to somebody the other day about this. We're getting to the point. There's enough people. We've got computers. There's enough technology where it's not going to be up to them anymore. We're just going to be able. Somebody's going to be able to put something together eventually in their backyard and see and prove and see the aliens. You know, we're going to bust them. Sooner or later, there's going to be enough of us with enough knowledge. We're going to bust them. We're going to catch them. With the, we're going to catch them, and we're not going to need our government to do it. So our government's going to be out of the equation because now there's 8 billion people. Pretty soon there's going to be 14 billion, and people are going to have access to technology. So what is their if you're running a slave labor system on the moon for this, and the slaves are about to find out they're slaves, and the biggest asset is your secrecy, what do? Your choices are, you got two choices. Tell them, disclose everything, or kill them. Kill them off. And what happened 12,000 years ago? No one can figure out, the scientists can't figure out, there's no scientific evidence to say that there was a flood for the earth. They said there's no way that, you talk to a scientist and they're like, well, there's no way the flood could happen. It could have been a local flood somewhere, like a meteorite made a flood over England. And so that's what they're writing. But if you can drive the moon from 250,000 miles away to 50,000 miles away, the whole Earth would get flooded out with giant tidal waves. From the whole Earth, the sky, the term "the sky is falling" would have came from that. And in 40 days and 40 nights of that, the whole Earth would have been wiped out. And then the people that are left, you can come down as gods in a generation after that and tell the story however you want to do it. And on and on.
Like when you say it the way you're saying it, it is so thought-provoking to realize that, we are enslaved planet. We are an enslaved planet. It's ridiculous. And I remember you saying in our last interview, talking about how the children of the series Colony is taught a completely different history of our human race. And you were...
Well, not only that, but they're taught the data from the CIA on the research for the psychic stuff. You know what I mean? Like the research, the data that we're not privy to, that we paid for, the research on psychic phenomenon, they're learning that. They're learning that up there. We don't learn it. And not only that, but you got to pay a ridiculous amount of money to go to college and learn anything. Right? If you want to actually learn... If I actually want to learn physics and think about attempting to build up my own spaceship, what's it going to cost me? $250,000 in college? Beyond that, and I got to be certain. That's what I mean. They've locked up all the information from us. So right then and there qualifies you as slavery. Qualifies you as a slave. You're not on the same level as somebody else, especially if you don't have the money or line of credit.
It's just so obvious, and yet people are so ingrained and conditioned to believe that this is just the way of the world, and it's not. How can an 18-year-old person that's just finished high school and go to college, want to have a medical degree, and then they've incurred a debt of $220,000 just because they want to get ahead in the world? I mean, that
no. And then, I don't like turning my when I do interviews like this, I don't like turning them into like doom and gloom, because a lot of people come in the comment. A lot of people out there are just already depressed, and they want to hear this stuff. It's like, I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to make a doom and gloom scenario, but I'm saying that from what I saw, that explains a lot of questions. When you say why the secrecy, why can't they tell us what's going on? Why when somebody doesn't tell you about something, when you're close. When someone close to you keeps a secret from you, it's usually a surprise birthday party or it's something bad. You know what I mean? It's something that you don't want to hear. It's gonna ruin your day. Exactly. So if they're keeping this kind of secrecy from us, believe me, it's not a birthday party. It's not a birthday party. They're keeping it from us. It's something bad. And so they've been using, in the grand scheme of things, it runs the gambit too. And we think about it in terms of money and labor. That's one aspect of it, but they're doing genetic experiments, they're doing genetic stuff, they're doing lots of things. There's soul tech, I call it. About consciousness. They're doing technology with consciousness. People, yeah, we're going to die, and we're still going to be kind of like exposed to this area of space because there's technology. There's other people on the other side. It's extra dimensional. When you die, you go to another dimension. That's all it is. Your energy does. And you are born into a body there that works, or something, a form that works in another dimension until you come back here. So how far does the experiment go? How advanced are they? They're not telling us. They're not telling us, and that's what's the alarm. That's all the alarm you need. That's all you need to know, that you're not being told.
You're not being told. That's the biggest thing. I mean, that alone, and just knowing that the government has lied about things throughout its history, is that not enough proof that something is going on? I mean, look at the whole thing with that hacker, Gary McKinnon. Did you ever hear about his story and how he hacked into NASA?
Yeah.
I mean, and he discovered the SSSS, the Excel sheet with all the secret space program, and SSSSSP, and with a name, there was like lists of officers that had been a part of this program, and then how he had said that there were pictures of craft, interstellar craft or spacecraft that had been photoshopped and brushed out of NASA pictures that they had in an archive somewhere. And this guy then, what was his sentence? It was ridiculous. I know that the U.S. wanted him to be extradited to America to be sentenced, or to be put on trial at least. So you knew about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I followed that quite a bit. I love the pictures of the Helen Coulter or whatever, Helen Cotter. Yeah. Well, the thing is, like I said, and I don't want to paint the doom and gloom about it all. I think overall a lot of people have a good life around here. Down here. I would feel a lot better if we were on the same footing as the ETs around us. If we just had access to their information. We have social questions. No, a big thing going on right now is the gender stuff and the homosexuality. We should be able to study all the other worlds and how it played out on other planets. The older society, we should have access to how it played out for them. That'd be the end of it.
That's right. And you know what? I try and tell my viewers, despite all the doom and gloom and the things that people read on the news or whatever's happening on the planet, there is still beauty on this planet. We're a very biodiverse planet. I say to people, focus on being in nature. Get out on your bike. Let the hair be in your wind. Like, let the wind be in your hair. Sorry, what I'm trying to say. Go out and immerse yourself in the beauty of our planet. Get back to yourself. I think that's the only thing that can really balance out all the craziness happening in the world.
The one of the major changes that happened to me after I remembered everything, and when I got my memories back, and it's a much broader picture of not only the world but like of the galaxy, of how it runs out there. And I started really just unplugging. Like, I gave up on trying to get rich. I totally gave up on it. I let go of the money thing, the carrot and stick. Like, I got to have more and more and more. And I just gave up on that. And I just thought to myself, I want to make today. I started living more like not trying to get to a certain number, but trying to just be happy. And it made the world a difference. It made the world a difference to me. That people they spend their life chasing happiness when you're supposed to be happy right now, and
the success and the money is going to give them the happiness.
Well, so many people get it and then they're not happy, and it makes them twice as sad. So many successful people that are just sad right now, and I meet it and I can see it. You can see it. They're really well off. They're supposed to be happier than I am, because they got way more than I do, and they're not. And it kills me, because you're chasing the wrong thing. You're chasing what they want you to chase. Working harder,
that system. So, you know, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like many years ago, I'll just say quickly, like I decided that I was going to live my authentic life, doing the things that I'm passionate about, that I love, and I try and encourage others to live the same. Whatever it is that you enjoy. I mean, it could be mechanics, it could be gardening, it could be painting, writing, whatever makes you happy. You know, because the biggest regret that people have when they die is that they didn't spend more time doing the things that they loved in their life. And, you know, like I come from a family where, you know, they bust their balls for generations, believing that they need to work hard for their money. Like I've come from that mentality. So when I told my family, look, I'm not living like this anymore. It's not fulfilling me. I'm not happy. I don't give a shit about money. I just want to do what makes me happy. And slowly they've accepted that now. It's taken a while, but that's that conditioning programmed in from when they were in their generation. You're probably your...
Exactly. That's what we're learning in school. We're not learning about space or anything else. We're not learning anything that's going to make mankind better. You're learning to go to work. You're learning to work and show up for a survive. That's what you're learning. Otherwise, there would be...
and the fear of going without. The fear of not having money to survive. That fear just keeps propelling them forward. Like, it's overpowering. It overpowers everything. So.
Yeah, so anyhow, how did we get to that? Well, the other thing is, there's only a matter of time until it's not going to work anymore. And I said this I think that slavery is self-destructive. I think that making people, like the existence that I had on Ceres Colony hindered it. Like on one hand, they profited, they didn't have to pay for the labor and all that, and they had people to take care of their garbage for them. But on the other hand, while those people were doing that, they weren't contributing what they really could have been. So they just look at the genetics, or they say this person's not a good person genetically, so he's going to be a good slave. He's a slave, he's a criminal person. Because criminality is a genetic thing, I think, or bad behavior. But that doesn't mean that person can't be a genius or figure something out. You know, people in history that have given a lot to us throughout history had the ability to do so. And if they were slaves, they wouldn't have contributed. If Mark Zuckerberg was a slave, he wouldn't have made Facebook that we're talking over all the time. So, you know what I mean? Because he was a free man, he could build something giant. Tesla, exactly. All of them, on and on. I mean, the list is long. But what I'm saying is, the next Tesla could be a slave when you're in a society that's full of slaves. So it's only a matter of time. They're going to have to disclose. They're going to have to tell us what's going on. They're going to have to include us, that we're part of the galactic community, and we're going to have to be able to contribute. You know what I mean, to the community, to the greater community, and because we're going to learn a lot from them, and we're going to change a lot too. When a lot of ET races have a completely different set of rules, like you said, the moral compass, the morality. A lot of them don't have the morals we have, because they don't have the feelings we have. They believe different things, and a lot of them are telepathic. They can understand everything. So there's a whole different set. Think of how often people lie to each other. It's unreal, man. Have you ever been married? Yeah, people have to lie almost. You know, so there are ETs that are not going to appreciate that when we meet them.
Sure. And then, you know, like kind of conclusively saying, whatever we've discussed in this interview today, like, I think it's important to note that people must understand that just because they're in this human body and seemingly on this enslaved planet, it's not going to take away the access that you have to the higher realms and to that unconsciousness, you know, or that universal energy that surrounds us. I mean, if all these slave-type people can tap into this, like Nikola Tesla, or, you know, great people of our world, What's stopping you? Like we have that same, we have that aspect within us, that divine aspect. No matter what body we have, what planet we've chosen to be on, or what we're a part of, we still have access to being incredible or tapping that knowledge.
Right, and along those lines, this is neat. Morgan Starr, a researcher, once asked me, she said, why do you think people suffer? Why do you think you suffered a lot? She said, on my account, she said, you suffered most of the time. You suffered greatly. And she said, why would anybody allow themselves to be born into a life that's for suffering? Why is suffering even exist? I mean, look at the people that are suffering around us. And I said, well, it's only for 80 years. When you talk about being an eternal being, eternity, 80 years is nothing, man. So you're telling me, I mean, you suffer how much out of your day, and you go to the dentist, how much do you suffer at the dentist? You know what I mean? A half hour of drilling, and you get your teeth fixed, and then you're on your way. Maybe it's spiritually, maybe that's what's going on here. We're supposed to suffer and get our thing fixed, and then go on about our way to a better existence, because we're really an eternal being. We're an eternal being. So suffering for one lifetime, 10 lifetimes, isn't long in the grand scheme of things. When you think about it like that.
And it makes sense, because sometimes pain and challenge and suffering can be our greatest teacher. I know through pain I've had some of my greatest life lessons, and I feel blessed in many ways for those experiences, because I'm a better person on a soul level because of that. So we could say that all this suffering on a planetary level, or on a mass human consciousness, is because we've all chosen to have these experiences to become more evolved as souls on that level.
Again, we're speculating. I did a lot of speculating, from my perspective here. I've learned to say that disclaimer because so many people just ride me about everything I say. They want proof. They want me to build a spaceship for them. And sorry, I went through a 20 and back, man. I went through a 20 and back. And that's not unusual, honestly, sadly enough. What's unusual is that I remembered it. So that's where I'm at. I'm not a sanctioned person. Hey, real quick, I want to plug my conference. The first time I'm going to talk live in front of a crowd is going to be the Star Family Conference in Rye, Australia, February 2nd, 3rd, I believe. It's February 2nd and 3rd in Rye, Australia. I'm going to do a live. There's going to be a lot of other speakers. I can't wait to meet the other speakers that are down there. It's going to be a great deal. So I'm going to do that. There's going to eventually people that can't make it. I'm sure there's going to be YouTubes available. Guy Dharma and Michelle Dharma are putting it on, and they're really busting their butt for a great conference. It's going to be a good deal. So check that out, the starfamilyconference.com. Yeah, that's in, and I'm going to try to get some slides, not a whole lot, but like a slideshow and presentation. I'm just going to go through my stuff, and then we're going to do a workshop the next day, for other people that are remembering stuff. I'm not the only one. That's the other thing. I'm not the only one that remembers this. There's a lot of people that are together. There's going to be a lot more coming. So, but I'm really excited about that conference. I can't wait to go. What's funny is in Australia, the secret space program is a big deal. I mean, I get a lot of people from. It's like it's big in Australia. The Aussies are in the loop. Maybe that's from Dr. Sala being from there or whatever. But there's a lot of people in Australia that are aware of what's going on, and that's the bigger audience, I think.
That's good. That's great. My final question, just before you go out, have you recognized any people that were a part of your 20-year and back program, like from the Mars, Aries Prime series? Have you seen anyone?
Yeah, I've met a couple people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but I don't want to tell. They got to tell their story. I can't say, but yeah, no, I have met people. People have contacted me here that I met up there.
But how nice would that be, just to sit and talk, and they totally get everything you're talking about? Oh, they're out there. Also, there's going to be another set of interviews. Neil, we're planning on doing a set of interviews, all in the same room. My buddy of mine, Kevin Trimmel, he did a 20 and back. He's probably still up there.
and he's going to do a set of interviews with me. We're going to have a whole series coming out on YouTube. We're going to tape them at the end of January, it looks like, and then hopefully in the summer we'll start releasing them. They're going to be episodes that'll cover everything in depth, like every little bit, Peru, all of it, Nick, and then I've got a guy ghostwriting for me. Jim Cavalier is a good, talented author, and he's ghostwriting my story. Just working on chapter 1 in the preface right now, but hopefully this summer I'm going to have a full book out that'll tell the story too. And then the reason I want this is I'm not trying to turn this into a career or something. Like I said, I don't care about the money, but I want after a disclosure, because they're going to lie about something. I want after a disclosure, I want my account to be there so that people can, after disclosure, they can look back and go, oh, he was saying this back in 2017, 2015, he said that. And so I just want it for cross-reference in the future. So I'm going to get as much as I can into that book, try to make it as accurate as I can.
Happy that you're moving ahead with that, because I know it's probably going to be a very strange, cathartic, upset.
I tried writing myself, and I'm not an author. And like I said, when you start writing about yourself being tortured, it's not the easiest thing to write down and relive. So it's good. I got a guy helping me out, and hopefully we get everything by this summer, some episodes for those interviews, and then the book to accompany it. So I hope so. Who knows? Maybe they'll disclose by then. Maybe we'll get a real, they're starting it. The ball's rolling. We'll see. Right now it's just us and the people watching this talking about this stuff. Give it a few years. It's going to be everybody. Once it comes out, it's going to be all everybody talks about everywhere.
Right, that's right. I feel like the disclosure, and I've always said this, I feel either the government is going to disclose when their hand is forced, that the consensus of people outweighs how much the government can cover up. I just feel like it's going to be through the people first, because people are going to become so aware, so knowledge. You just can't lie to them anymore. And I feel the government's hand is going to be forced into disclosure. I feel that.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to kill us this time. I think we're going to pull this one off. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing is right now there's a few people like me. Pretty soon there's going to be more. More people that come in contact with this information are going to go, wait, I remember that too. I went through that too. And it's going to be on. Pretty soon there's going to be tens of thousands. There's going to be many, many people where you can't hide it anymore. So they're going to have to come clean. And I think people are ready for it. I think the average guy can handle the gruesome. You know what I mean? People can handle it. They always say, well, we told it to be riots and stuff. People can't handle the truth. That's BS. People can handle the truth.
Handle it, because it's out there now. People are okay with hearing about it. As far-fetched as it may seem to them initially, eventually, if they hear more of the same, they're going to know that something's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so everybody knows anyway. Everybody knows something's wrong. Everybody knows something's wrong. You don't know what it is. They're not going to buy this or that, but everybody knows there's something wrong going on. The world isn't the way it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Starving human beings on this planet in this day and age, and we have all the food to feed everybody. I mean, we've got to know just by that alone that something is not right. Something's not right, That alone is enough, to know there's...
And everybody knows, whether they believe in UFOs or not, whether they believe it or not, whether they believe in spirituality or everything, everybody knows something's wrong. Something's going on. We're being lied to. There's something else going on behind the scenes. It's a big deal, and they're lying to us about it. So, if my account answers those questions, that's fine. I sure like to listen to other people's accounts. I just talk about what I remember, and that's what I remember, man. There is a space colony. There is a space interplanetary corporate conglomerate of corporations that are using the Earth as a resource for their colonies. So there we go.
Say thank you. I want to say thank you on behalf of not just me, but for everyone that's heard your testimony. Thank you for your service to humanity, because it's going to be, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. It really is a big deal, and I think that's absolutely warranted. you know, for you to decide to agree upon to be a part of something as extreme as this, that is a huge deal. And then to come back and talk about it, that's massive. That is a big deal. So I want to say thank you, and I feel honored that you are sharing with us, not just me, but the people before that you've been interviewed with. Like, it's a big deal. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. You know, people have asked, in the very beginning, I just wanted some counseling, and I contacted and worked with Dr. Sala, but then he asked about interviews, and more people have asked. So if people ask me, I want to tell them. So I don't want to feel, it stops me from feeling alone through the whole thing, which I know that there are other people that are getting their memories. That's the worst feeling is, who am I going to talk to this about? Who am I going to, you know what I mean? If you just get your memories from a 20 back and then you're with your family at dinner, who are you going to talk to about it? You know, it's hard. So I found a source of therapy from it. It was therapeutic for me to talk about it. You know, maybe I'm selfish after all, getting paid a little bit in the form of therapy. I sure like doing that. I'll tell you, and the other thing is it's growing. I used to spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day talking to people. Now it's all day. It's all day. It's all day. People hit me up with questions and things. So it's growing. The subject is growing and the audience is growing.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I think you, by following your intuition, by coming out with it and talking about it, is absolutely being a very cathartic experience for you. Like it's a double win for both. Like, not only are we learning something about you and what's been going on beneath the surface, but behind closed doors, and yet it's also good for you because you get to talk about it. You get to uncover more experiences, like some things that were coming up in our last interview. You know, there were some things about I think it was the German scientist, or something about we uncovered some information simply just by talking about it.
Sure. I'm still remembering bits and pieces. I remember bits and pieces constantly. We'll see. I spent the first year working really hard to remember more, and now I feel like I kind of wish I could forget it all. You know, sometimes